Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Saturday Talk. We are privileged to have Dr. S. Rangarajan ji today with us. A brief introduction of Sir. Dr. S. Rangarajan is a satellite industry veteran with 40 plus years of experience in successive leadership roles in the public and private sectors. He held important executive positions in ISRO and has contributed significantly in system studies and design, mission planning, satellite control, and anomaly resolution. As a senior vice president in World Space, Dr. Rangarajan successfully adapted the satellite radio infrastructure to design diverse solutions for data multicastings, distance education, and early warning delivery post-2004 tsunami. As the CTO of Yasmi USA LLC, he created the first ever tablet with an integrated satellite reception for uniform and ubiquitous education delivery. As far as his education goes, that includes a PhD from the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, and a master's from IIT Madras. Currently, he is also engaged as a vice president with Planet Aerospace, whom we were very much grateful to have a satellite design orientation program from Planet Aerospace, wherein Dr. S. Rangarajan was actively participating in that entire program. And now I request Sir to take it forward from here, since he has done a lot of work into education and technology. We're so eager to listen to you, Sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh, for a crisp introduction. And I'm very happy to be in the midst of such luminaries. Of all people, I've talked to you when I was part of the training program, which Rajesh was mentioning. And so I know most of you may not be face-to-face, but nowadays face-to-face is not, most of the things are all in this kind of a Google Meet kind of structure. So we have got connected and we know each other. So that's why I thought I should bring home something which is a big challenge. And this is something that's been lying there for a long time, but not been correctly addressed or solved. That's why I wanted to pick up is education in rural India. What is this rural India of all of a sudden? Why rural India? Why not just India? Of course, once you say rural India, it will be obviously applicable elsewhere. But India lives in its villages, as it's told. So therefore, if you do not provide equitable services in the villages, the kind of migration which has been there for ages now, they all come to the cities and urban chawls and all that. And therefore, they lose a lot of those benefits of living in the villages. I can, as a personal experience, I can say, for the last 5 years, I've been living in a village. I am living in a place which it's only for postal purposes, it's called Bangalore. Otherwise, when I go for a 1 hour morning walk, the only people whom I will meet, maybe one person, the milkman usually comes in a motorbike, and then about hundreds of dogs and tens of cows and all. That's a kind of surrounding that we have, very beautiful fields all around like that. So rural places are very good, if they take care of the health, education, and such basic needs. And also in terms of the demographic dividend, which we talk about, that India has got people in that age group. And if the people in the rural India do not get properly educated and they are not ready to take over the kind of jobs which have become, today already the people who study very formally find that when they get on to jobs, it is a lot of learning on the job only, because things are changing pretty fast, and therefore adaptively and then making them very strong in the foundations is something very important. And that should happen to everyone, whether it's rural, urban, and everybody should be covered and given the same quality of learning. What happens sometimes, a blessing in disguise is this pandemic. Because of the pandemic, some of our major problems came to the fore. See, in terms of education, we found almost 1.5 years of education, academic years were lost, and the learning gap, which always used to exist between the people who are all the toppers and the people in the average and the people at the bottom of the tail, that widened. And they at that time were saying, okay, now we have technologies, online classes could be made available, smartphones became very popular for people to possess. And then sort of they assumed things should be continued in that mode. And when the schools reopened, lo and behold, we found that there are huge learning gaps. Because this has been studied by several people. I at least want to mention 2 different reports. Asim Premji University has done a detailed study and then talks about how at all we can approach to remedy this. And more interestingly, I came across a nice study done by the University of California at San Diego. They did a pilot in Tamil Nadu. And some of you know Tamil, so I can use the name of the project goes as Illam Thedi Kalvi. That means the education comes to the house or something. Actually, it's not coming to the house. It's built around some volunteers. I'm going to explain that concept a little later. So they claim that before they started that process, in 2021 middle, they did a survey and found that on the average, 22 to 23 months retrograde motion was there in terms of one's education. So, but usually even earlier, a 7th standard boy used to be on the average or somewhat around 5th standard level he used to understand. Now that 5th has gone down to 3rd standard level. This is absolutely so difficult, because then how are they going to sit in the 8th standard? Because they get promoted, and what will they learn? How will the textbooks be useful to them? All these became very serious issues. Under this context, and I would like to show quickly this little graph, which is done by the World Bank report, which says that pre-COVID, of course, we had very clearly two distinct curves. Here, what it shows in the very left is what existed before the COVID. And then the dotted line shows that on one hand, it could have just moved the normal curve to produce uniformly a kind of lowering of the average score. This was one scenario. The second scenario said, no, it can increase the standard deviation. Some of those people on the top level, they get access without any interruption to the best of the educational content, and they become even better. But then it widened. But what really happened is the last one, the third one, where you find at the bottom, there was a sharp increase in the low learning at the bottom. And this is something which I would call as a supplementary digital divide, and this needs to be addressed immediately. To get moving on that, I would like to first decompose what are all the components which make up learning? See, let us first address only the school level learning only. At higher levels, you have plenty of other opportunities, but you cannot go to the 8th floor when you have not made your foundation first floor strong. So therefore, if you look at the totality, if you want to mention only three things, it's the content, then it's how it's connected and how it's consumed. To go in little details, you have on one hand a content part of it. Today, with the availability of content from various sources, in fact, we have too much rather than too less. So that is not at all an issue. In fact, except for the access part of it, and later I'm going to show in our model, it's the best of the best content will go to all, and therefore getting the best content is going to be only a matter of selection. So that is not at all a big issue, the first box on the left. You go next is in terms of availability of that content close by. That is, if you can make this available, let's say in a big server, because today's storage, all costs have come down. And therefore, then it is possible that without any internet or network access, it should be possible to get access to the material. Suppose it's a local library kind of thing. So on a Wi-Fi, that's where I'm calling hotspot. So in the local hotspot will allow a device of mine to connect there without being charged for the connectivity and be able to get files or get whatever things which I want to get out of that. So that is the third aspect, the personalized device. The device should be one's own in the sense that if there are 10 students in that place, that should be 10 devices. Each one, just like you have a school bag, you should have your own device. It cannot be shared among parents or siblings and so on. And the next and most important thing is the fourth box there is the controlled access to the content. Because this is an extremely important step, because it is not, that is where, in fact, later I'm going to talk again, saying that having a very wide access broadband and accessibility to all the content available globally by itself will not solve the educational problem, because controlling the access is important. Because now they'll say, okay, parental control, you want to control this way like this. Here, there must be some way by which what goes to the student's device should be controlled. That's one of the issues. The fifth and the most important part, which is not very much emphasized, is the fact that you have to treat each student as individual. No one is mediocre, but because of the way they have been taught, there are times when they struggle. So if only we can assess where exactly is the problem, and then you adapt your teaching to match that. Suppose there is a nice, beautiful road, not like the Bangalore roads, somewhere like maybe Hyderabad or whatever, and you have a few potholes, you just find that out and then patch it up. And then the road is again very good to do that. So for doing that, you have to have a mechanism of finding out where the exact problem is. I'm going to touch upon this, which is not very much done, except in this so-called Tamil Nadu study, tries to address it in some manner in terms of trying to find out where individual students are lacking. Because there's nothing like one shoe fits all when it comes to teaching. So this is a kind of background. To get moving on that, I would like to first decompose what are all the components which make up learning? See, let us first address only the school level learning only. At higher levels, you have plenty of other opportunities, but you cannot go to the 8th floor when you have not made your foundation first floor strong. So therefore, if you look at the totality, if you want to mention only 3 things, it's the content, then it's how it's connected and how it's consumed. To go in little details, you have on one hand a content part of it. Today, with the availability of content from various sources, in fact, we have too much rather than too less. So that is not at all an issue. In fact, except for the access part of it, and later I'm going to show in our model, it's the best of the best content will go to all, and therefore getting the best content is going to be only a matter of selection. So that is not at all a big issue, the first box on the left. You go next is in terms of availability of that content close by. That is, if you can make this available, let's say in a big server, because today's storage, all costs have come down. And therefore, then it is possible that without any internet or network access, it should be possible to get access to the material. Suppose it's a local library kind of thing. So on a Wi-Fi, that's where I'm calling hotspot. So in the local hotspot will allow a device of mine to connect there without being charged for the connectivity and be able to get files or get whatever things which I want to get out of that. So that is the third aspect, the personalized device. The device should be one's own in the sense that if there are 10 students in that place, that should be 10 devices. Each one, just like you have a school bag, you should have your own device. It cannot be shared among parents or siblings and so on. And the next and most important thing is the fourth box there is the controlled access to the content. Because this is an extremely important step, because it is not like, that is where, in fact, later I'm going to talk again, saying that having a very wide access broadband and accessibility to all the content available globally by itself will not solve the educational problem, because controlling the access is important. Because now they'll say, okay, parental control, you want to control this way like this. Here, there must be some way by which what goes to the student's device should be controlled. That's one of the issues. The fifth and the most important part, which is not very much emphasized, is the fact that you have to treat each student as individual. No one is mediocre, but because of the way they have been taught, there are times when they struggle. So if only we can assess where exactly is the problem, and then you adapt your teaching to match that. Suppose there is a nice, beautiful road, not like the Bangalore roads, somewhere like maybe Hyderabad or whatever, and you have a few potholes, you just find that out and then patch it up. And then the road is again very good to do that. So for doing that, you have to have a mechanism of finding out where the exact problem is. I'm going to touch upon this, which is not very much done, except in this so-called Tamil Nadu study, tries to address it in some manner in terms of trying to find out where individual students are lacking. Because there's nothing like one shoe fits all when it comes to teaching. So this is a kind of background in which we are. So if you look at the 3 components I'm going to take in terms of where the problems are, so that we'll know how to find out the right solutions. If you look at the connectivity, at least what works very well for one application does not automatically become the best for all. Because very many people think, oh, broadband internet access. Oh, it will work very well for my Instagram. Then why can't I use it for education? Why can't I use it for health? Each discipline is different, and they have very, very different requirements of traffic, and you have to match the traffic to the kind of connectivity. So one of the things, always on, like a student suddenly decides 5 o'clock in the morning, I get up and work. His classmate, who is one of those late sleepers, he gets up at 8 o'clock. He wants to study at 8 o'clock. So it should not say that you force them all to study at a given timetable. It should be available universally. In terms, there should not be any geographical gaps anywhere, and it should be equitable service. I'll touch upon it later. And preferably, you should not depend on the telecom providers, because the telecom networks, first of all, are not uniformly available, and they charge for the usage. And all of a sudden, the very crucial time in this rural India only I'm talking about, because last 6 years, I have such a lot of experience handling the actual people who live in the villages, because it's one school in which I am in the management. There are some 250 students. I know each and every one of them, whose their parents are, what do they do. Most of them are farmers or work in the household, like that's all what they do. Some of them are drivers like that. And those students, what kind of problem they will say, first time and all, when they used to call me, sir, there is no charge. You'll say, I thought, what is the charge? Maybe I only knew electric charge. I thought, okay, why don't you plug it in? You want any outlet? No, sir, charge, no charge means he doesn't have money he has to pay for using it or some such thing. That's the way they talk about it. So some of the things which we take for granted for ourselves does not work in their households. So the power situation goes off, in rural India. Our state electricity corporation makes sure when there's a heavy rain, you're almost certain that the power will go off for 2 hours. I mean, it's something which is very typical of the way they've been wired. Internet, of course, is certainly not uniformly available. And even if it's available, how to use it is a different thing. And the other important point of the connectivity is that you should be able to control what gets into the user device. That's an extremely important part. I'll talk about it, and it should be available immediately, because you cannot discuss today and all that. We are talking on 24th of September. I would like to start it on 1st October, maybe 2nd October if you want, so that nationally, such an important day. I would like to start to that extent. It should be readily available, whether it's space segment, ground segment, software, everything should be available so that you start. It should be scalable. It should be replicable. What works in Karnataka should work in Haryana and so on. And it should be very easy for the people to use, because you can't give them training and all this. Not like gadgets where I myself struggle when there's a new app and all that. I don't know how to use it. So therefore, I don't expect some children to learn that fast, and it should be sustained locally. All these are important characteristics for the connectivity. What about the device itself? The device, again, we almost always assume should be a smartphone. In fact, the people who are working in that, my gardener, driver, all those people, what they happened 2 years ago when suddenly they said online, they had to buy smartphones. So each one of them used to spend 7,000, 10,000 rupees to buy smartphone, thinking that will solve all the problems, but it sometimes created more problems. So it should be personalized, very important. The sharing with the parents and all that puts time restrictions and so on. And later using some file from there, they would have deleted it and things like that. And the screen size, I would prefer something like 7 inches kind of thing, which a tablet gives, rather than the smartphones, which are even smaller than that. Power consumption should be small, because I told you the battery itself may have to be charged again. And mobility is important. So it should not be very huge, like big computer and all that. Multimedia is where most of the content is rendered. Khan Academy. I want to listen to it. I should have a reasonably good picture of what he is drawing and what he is explaining, so that even his English is difficult to understand, but at least I can understand what he has written and so on. And very important, that should not be usage charges, because the moment you bring in some charge like that, people think twice. The father or mother says, why is it so important? Tomorrow you go to the class, you copy from the other person's notebook or something, whole system fails, and it should be easily maintainable. All these are device kind of requirements. Now comes the third requirement, which I touched upon at the very beginning, is in terms of understanding where the learning gaps are. And this, I have done a lot of research. And if any of you are interested, I can spend any amount of time with you on email, give you example after example, because every day, like today, I have sent something like 6 plus 6, 12 quiz questions. All are very simple ones. But then when they respond, I will notice that there are so many different mistakes, the ways in which they will get the wrong answer. Because many people who are only assessment for learning will just give marks. Suppose you have a quadratic formula, the roots are to be found. They will say, if you get both the roots, you get 2 mark 1 root, 1 mark nothing, 0, like that. That is not going to help at all, because they might go wrong because of umpteen reasons. They don't know how to read off the coefficients A, B, C. They do not know that if like here x squared minus x, A is 1, they will not know. They'll take A is not there, sir, A equal to 0. I mean, these are all very logical ways they are thinking. And then what happens is they don't know how to take the square root and all those things. That ways in which they go wrong is so many. And therefore, it's important to understand where he went wrong. And even when that is fresh in his mind, you should be able to go back and say, you see, you did everything correctly. Only thing is that minus of minus 2, you should have put 2. Something like that. Because they get all kinds of ideas. There are guys who are doing 4x equal to 8. Solve this. You will say, no, I will take not 4x equal to 16. Solve that. What you will do, he will take x is equal to 16 minus 4. Because when you go from left-hand side to right-hand side, you should put minus signs. See, some formulas, they don't know when to apply and so on. And that is where the assessment for learning tells you where they go wrong. And once you know that, it is exactly like a medical diagnosis. You cannot just like that give everybody a vitamin tablet. That's not what we are trying to cure them of their illness. One person has cough, immediately you don't give the same cough syrup. Then we ask him questions, is coughing or type, is it pooping cough, whatever. And then you give prescribe. No, same way here. For each and every time they make mistakes, you have to give the prescription and correct it. And that is the kind of approach which I'm going to explain. Generally speaking, a lot of people think technology for education basically provide a broadband internet, very large bandwidth on both forward and return directions for teachers and students. On the other hand, I would think when you want to distribute the common needs of students. See, when you come to curricular education, if I am doing chapter 2 in one school, chapter 2 is done in the other school, in the third school, and every school. So they are all teaching quadratic equation. Everybody is teaching quadratic equation. And therefore, what happens is this can be done by a broadcast solution. This is exactly like, when you wanted to watch yesterday the Nagpur match, everybody wanted to watch. Then what did we do? We sent it through the satellite. So therefore, the commonality is a very important step. So now let's proceed. Here I have tried to explain. There are several ways in which you can distribute, using a satellite, distribute the contents. Suppose you want to distribute it at home, one of the possibilities is to take a free ride on the DTH platform itself. And what you can do is you can encapsulate the data, your content controller, whatever I have shown, that can just get into the same thing along with the TV channels. And at the LNA output, you can segregate it and bring it to a hotspot. If you look at ways of supplementing a satellite connected hotspot, because normally in a school, you can connect the server with a very large capacity, maybe 3-4 terabytes, and then that is satellite connected. So that has large capacity. That will provide the content for the teachers, students. It will also provide the assessment results, responses from the student device to the server. So that part of it is all done. But then if you want to also have a provision of doing such kind of a two-way connectivity, there are multiple ways of doing it. One is what I just now showed, the multi-protocol encapsulation. That is on the DTH channels you can do. Even in the FM radio allows you what is called the radio data service, the RDS, very low bit rate, 1 kilobits per second, like that. But that particular thing is used usually for traffic related information, things like that. We can use it for sending files. The digital audio broadcast terrestrial also is available, which is underutilized. The frequencies are allocated. This is another very interesting concept, the BOC, that's the binary offset carrier. This is used, for example, in Galileo, when they have done coexisting with the GPS receiver, then they do the binary offset carrier. Here, I had already talked about tablet as the better student device, but the last part is important, the push part of it, where the sender controls what goes into the student device, how long it should reside. It should even be able to purge it. When you're done with that homework, then you remove that thing from there, or when you clear 9th standard, you remove all that and then go to the 10th standard stuff and things like that. So there is no student initiation. One is that work-wise, it's less for the student. More importantly, that also means that he gets exactly what is needed. So he'll go by that timetable. Undesirable content is avoided, and there is absolutely no network congestion. It's very important because the exam time and all that, if you are going to use the internet for all these study related things, you may get into some servers getting blocked and so on. And there's no limit on the number of recipients. So these kinds of advantages. Here I have talked about broadly what is the approach to goal. I mean, in addition to the top part of it is talking about the schools. That is basically a satellite connected receiver server is available for getting the content. Yeah. And the most important part is a cycle here where we just go into the study, see the inner part. That is the linchpin of the entire thing, where you first make them study something, do the assessment for learning. Remember that for learning, and because I want to find out where he is lacking, and then you remedy it. Because the feedback is given, it is remedied, and then you do the tutoring, hand holding, and then you try to again go through the next cycle where you will make a different mistake at least this mistake is avoided. So what we did was, here there was an engineering institution which was very interested. They read my paper actually, and then they said that if that is the case, our students want to come and spend time, because they are also not all that great, because you know how the various engineering colleges are. They are all the time doing what has been given to them, but then they would like to understand the foundational things. So they'll give them an opportunity to interact with a somewhat younger age group. So we said, okay, why not we do this? Every Saturday, you come and spend some 2 to 3 hours. And they used to come to this school, and we took all the 9th and 10th standard students of the present academic year, 51 of them, made them into 6 groups. And they divided the facilitators also into 6 such groups. It was almost like 1:1 or 1:2 kind of thing. So there were always more of personal attention, and they brought in with all kinds of gadgets and all, because for them it was a nice challenge to show that, okay, this is a number line, means they will bring some string and show very beautifully, innovatively they have done that. And we are waiting, we have done a pre-test for the target group as well as a control group, and we will finish it in, because of Dashara, we have taken a break. In October, another 3 or 4 sessions later, we'll do the post-test and then show that this also leads to a quantitative improvement. And these are things which can be done. And I was sometimes some very, very minor things give you a tremendous boost. 2 days ago, the engineering professor who is controlling this, the engineering students, one of the girls, I believe, lost her father or something like that, and she was very depressed. And she writes saying that my coming to this and helping these children made me really bring back enthusiasm, and now I'm back to my original self. I was thinking, my God, I never thought that this kind of additional benefits also could come. So what happens is, that's why I put in 3 of my acronyms: the guided offline approach to learning, which emphasizes on the assessment for learning and how do you do the remedial. The schools part of it is emphasizing the delivery of content as needed exactly to that location, and because of the uniformity, you queue to every location. Ideally, this hotspot could be in every school or every community. And the last one is the e-share. And you notice that in all these processes, you see that there are different approaches. See, one of the challenges was not all the students have the same access to the educational resources. When you are making internet-based study, there are some who get it, some who do not, the urban-rural divide and so on. But now what you have done webcasting. You pull the content from the internet. Nobody prevents you from doing it, because we as the super mentor have access to the best of the best content. You improve on whatever is available and make even better than that, and that will go to all. That is the advantage of one-to-many. Otherwise, if there are one-to-one, every college, every school has to discover what is the best content and do this research. Here, that research is centralized, and all the teachers and students get the latest and most relevant information. And that controlling group will then decide how to curate this and so on. And qualified instructors are definitely in short supply, and especially in rural areas. This is where we use this concept of super teachers, and using the same school's link on an online mode, on just in time, you can sort of coach the people on that particular topic. Suppose I'm going to teach them Ohm's law. I just give them a 5 minutes introduction. See, here we are talking about the current when you are measuring on the coil and then apply different values for the potential difference, how the same coil is giving out more current when there is more voltage and things like that, and draw a graph and things like that. So the teachers will understand faster, and then with a fresh in their mind, they will be able to deliver a better lecture. And the students also then start listening more carefully, because now the teacher has become adept in that particular concept. E-library is very easily doable using the schools, because large storage is available, digital form, and you keep only what is needed and properly organized. Don't just load it unnecessarily with unwanted stuff. That's important. And the satellite broadcast as the first choice for the connectivity, for delivery of the content to all different locations. Tablet is the first choice for the student device. Teachers, of course, should have their own smartphones and all that, because obviously that's a different requirement. And you can use a variety of different ways by which you can write on and be able to provide that kind of accessibility. And very important to get the local tutorships. And initially it can be volunteers and so on, or paid that 1,000 rupees kind of thing in Tamil Nadu. But eventually it can go into a AI-based system. It can definitely be a Watson engine kind of thing, which can do that. And if you make these kinds of proactive measures, it'll make education systems more resilient, more open, inclusive, so nobody is left out, and very flexible. And this is somewhere we started with the pandemic disrupting the educational system, and we'll turn it to our advantage and get the right strategy for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. In fact, today morning at my home, we were discussing with the Vigyan Bharati team, and it was more specific about upgrading teachers' techniques. Right. Okay. That is before attacking to the children. We wanted to upgrade the teaching technique. And one point, you solved my puzzle. In fact, how to upgrade elders who are already lost their flexibility or the absorbing capacity. So you straight away address that issue today's take home is that just in time upgrading.
Yeah. So because the just in time Abhimanyu is extremely interesting. Because I have known this, when the summer camps in Bangalore, in Indian Institute of Science, they'll all gather from all parts of Karnataka. They'll come there, and the TADA collection, visiting Lal Bagh, visiting this thing, everything, MTR, all restaurants, Vidyarthi, everything, they'll finish, go back. Cyclo-style notes only they used to give. They'll keep it with them. And they'll copy it on the board and say, this is what they have gotten. That is not going to make the children really excited.
Because see, new thing, Bombay I'm new, in fact 6-7 years old only. It's very puzzling. Within Bombay stock exchange se 70 km ka andar. We see tribal hamlets where they use still lanterns.
Okay.
It's very surprising because I am connected with some NGOs, so I keep going to villages. So I was always, that I almost came to business this thing for education. Still it is in my mind, we will do that. Another take home you are talking about is the offline education, because all the children are not having the absorbing capacity equal.
Yes.
So that part is you addressed it, sir. We will definitely work on that. And one more doubt I had is that the content you are pushing into them, is it content of the state syllabus, CBSE syllabus, or it is a content created by your team? How is it?
Yeah. See, actually, we are content neutral. But then again, I always ask this question. Suppose I were to teach my child. Because I've done it all the way right from when I was very small. I used to go and talk to my nieces, nephews. In fact, my niece who came to visit me, her son is getting married. She came to invite me. Look, uncle, when my child gets a child, that's her grandchild, you should teach. I said, okay, I'll live up to that and teach. So therefore, the very important point is, while teaching that, you, at that point of time, what content you will use? See, obviously, you are preparing them for the exam. Exam orientation is very important. Like that, whatever I did last year for the schooling, the 10th standard people is totally exam oriented, because that is exactly what we will do. Exam papers, past papers, analysis, this kind of question will come, even to the extent of model paper 1 to model paper 2. Then I know that when they set there are 5 question papers, three are used in model paper, 2 are kept, 1 for September, like that they arrange. I take all those aspects into account, what will be the psychology, what kind of questions will come. But then in terms of the content choice, broadly, yes, we have to fit into the state board for the topics. But in terms of presenting the data, you have a widest choice, because again, we are in a position where we have access to all sorts of Khan academies and equivalents, So you go to all of them and then you decide this topic is best addressed this way. So therefore, this is how you try to present it. Okay. Again, keep yourself open. All this time, the teachers, one biggest problem is the teacher, once he has understood very well, he goes and explains it so well. Pythagoras' theorem, this is a statement, this is how the proof, how exactly, he has understood. So he thinks that all the people in front in the classroom will understand, but they don't. Therefore, the feedback which I am talking about, the assessment for learning, will show that 3 of the students have not at all understood why we should draw that one perpendicular line at all. Suppose that is the problem where it's solved. Then you should go and attack the way the content is prepared. You understand? No? I'll just give you one more. I'm sorry. I'm so passionate about it. Like, for example, one of the standard questions in SSLC here in Karnataka is draw a 8 centimeter line AB and divide it into 2 segments in the ratio 3:5. This comes very often. I teach my students saying that, look, if I give you 8 centimeter line with the scale you're drawn, if 3:5 you divide, find the point. Don't you understand? I make them understand that the point, say, let's say C, is such that AC is 3 centimeters. So after all, you have got a pencil tip, you have got a scale. Can you not first put a dot there? Nobody is going to question it. Later, your answer will push it and it will go and cut at that point. So once you know the answer, then you are otherwise it's parallel line when you draw, you make some mistake and you get something totally wrong. So that kind of hints I teach, which is not there in Khan Academy, which may not be there in very specific material. So you innovate more, but by and large, take the best content. And the best content for those topics need not be from that particular board. It can come from different sources. You should have access to that. See, sometimes motion, you want to show them very good videos, animations are there. You show how uniform motion and non-uniform motion you want to show. That you show it graphically, they understand it faster. Doesn't mean that everything should be video. That is where I mean, in the one-to-many thing, the research should go on at the central end to decide what is best way of attacking that topic. So let us take the next week's topic and 4 people discuss, and they'll say, no, I see that this is a better way of explaining this, and they'll show all kinds of things and close it. That is, so you should not right in the beginning say that I will take only one particular notes or that format to teach all. That may not work. Give the
I was curious about how can we also enhance the communication skills or expressiveness of these rural kids, because the content that you showed is amazing in terms of, I really like the fact that you get to the last couple of students also. Like you said, why don't the coaching institutes mention that? But at the same time, once they pass out, they come to institutes or places where they have to communicate well. Have you encountered this or have addressed this in any way earlier?
Yeah. It's very, very, very true, because one of the things which is really lacking when you look at the rural students definitely is in terms of communication in all forms, in the comprehension, in written form, spoken form. In all the 3, they very much lack. For example, when they write, I have seen all kinds of spelling mistakes will be there. And comprehension, many a time, as you know, I was giving you the example of solve. They know to do it, but they don't know what is the meaning of this particular solve or evaluate. And you know that such words are not very commonly used. So they are not familiar. So therefore, we did address this. At the same time, you cannot turn them to some Oxford kind of students all over. And it's not needed. So therefore, the confidence that they build in the concepts is very important. If they know, that is where if a problem of this kind comes, this is what may be expected, because otherwise this word problem sometimes would be very difficult to comprehend. So they may not be able to talk it back, but to a limited extent, you try to make them present. Like for example, we have one more acronym. I know I always have so many acronyms. One is called PLAY, is a peer-to-peer learning among youth. I created this 2 years ago. Here, when I looked at I give a test of 10 questions, let's say, and 10 students are there. A matrix of 10 by 10 I create. I find a guy This is very typical in a rural setting compared to a top-notch school. The top ranker will get all the 10 right. The second top will get 9 right, like that. Here it never happens like that. A person who gets one question, he's the only one to get right, will get 3 others wrong. And another question, somebody else would have got it right. So what I used to do is to go and ask the guy who has got it right, because he's so happy. I'm the only one I got this right. I said, it's very fine. But now your competition is not with these classmates, because it's always with yourself of what you were yesterday. So you have shown an improvement. Therefore, why don't you share this to your other people? And this works so well. So therefore, they suddenly lose all that inhibitions. Go and explain on the board. This is what I did. This is how I got, in their own way of talking. And that is the beginning of a good communication. They can't obviously all of a sudden become equal to our expectations. We have to provide them additional training. But this way, at least something connected with their work, which they have done. See, all these, the timing is very important. Just like I was telling, the correction should be done within a very short time of having made the mistake. The more you delay, they don't care for it. If today morning I've given a test, today evening I will tell them, look, you wrote 2 ohms instead of 2 amps. You should not have done. You should have looked at the correct physical quantity. This then they will remember forever. If I tell them 1 week later or send them a red circled thing, they don't even bother to see it. Same way, in terms of this speaking ability, you should try to make them talk on a topic on which just now they have got a success, and that they would like to present. So use such psychological things to push. Again, there's no uniform rule. You cannot say that this is what you do. You make them see. Otherwise, sometimes I've seen the reading comprehension and all. The questions will come and then answer the questions based on the passage below. In English, they ask you. But then again, for the exam, I teach them differently. You read the question, there'll be a word. How did the author find this eradication something? You say eradicate is a very difficult word. You don't know the meaning, but you find out in which sentence that comes. Take that sentence and write this as an answer. See, like these kinds of hints are for example. But when it comes to actuality, you try to make much simpler things of communications. And language skills are not learned that fast, but it can be done. See, you should first build the confidence in themselves that they are capable of doing something. Then they always can go to the next level.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.